have the Marowak as well to be able to help protect those Politoads, potentially with that Lightning Rod from those electric-type moves. Having two potential Perish Song users on the team as well, with the Marowak and that Politoed, but there was always the Perish Song potential that could come out from the Lapras, but it is paired with that Talonflame that we have been seeing so often paired with Lapras in this Series 5.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what kind of sets these Pokemon are currently running, because like you said, Perish Song can be a really good end-game strategy that you won't 100% understand and expect to be coming your way. But we're going to be seeing the Urshifu and Rillaboom come out from Marcus's side, whilst on Mattie's side, we are going to be seeing the female Indeedee and Porygon 2. Most notably, the Rillaboom's grass terrain does get set first, which means the female Indeedee is going to be able to establish its psychic terrain second, which will protect it from any fake outs coming out from the Rillaboom, whilst the Porygon 2 does get that boost of the download.
Yeah, one of the most interesting interactions of this VGC 20 is that the terrain war between the female Indeedee and the Rillaboom, both having the same base speed, depending on how they were trained, being key into which terrain goes up. If the grassy terrain goes up seconds, then the Rillaboom is able to click Fake Out against the Indeedee side of the field. But if the psychic terrain goes up, then there's no Fake Outs coming out from the Rillaboom and no priority grassy glides as well. And now that the psychic terrain is on the field, the Indeedee does have a very free follow me to take away the fighting type moves that would really threaten down this Porygon from the Urshifu and would allow the Porygon 2 to go for a very safe Trick Room if Mattie chooses to.
Yeah, like you said, it's that battle of the terrains, because they're both at the same exact speed. But we're going to see the Indeedee go for that follow me that we were expecting. Wicked Blow does come out from the Urshifu, so it will now be revealing if that female Indeedee does have the Focus Sash, which it does. Critical hit, of course, does not matter, as the Indeedee will be able to survive on 1 HP, whilst Taunt actually comes out from the Rillaboom, not what you usually see, stopping the follow me potential of the following turn, whilst the Porygon 2 does get that Trick Room going.
Yeah, very crucial focus slash there on the Indeedee. If it wasn't holding that, it would have been KO'd to that Wicked Blow, allowing for the Taunt to be going into that Porygon 2 and stopping the Trick Room. But now Mattie's in the position he wants to be. The Urshifu and the Rillaboom would be outspeeding both of the Indeedee and the Porygon 2. And he's got some very slow Pokemon on his team as well, with the Marowak and the Politoed. So really wanting to make use of that Trick Room. The Urshifu will be immune to any expanding forces that the Indeedee wants to go for, because it is that single strike variety. But the Rillaboom would still be taking quite a lot of damage. It would have to switch out if it wants to get its grassy terrain back, and that means it's not going for another Taunt into the Porygon or any kind of offensive moves. Maybe Mattie just wants to sacrifice the Indeedee once more, redirect one more time, or just get a free switch in, but he's actually going to be switching straight out into his own Rillaboom, so actually setting up the grassy terrain instead.
Wow, setting up the grass terrain and having fake out pressure on the following turn. So really interesting play from Mattie right now. Does want to try to make sure that Indeedee can use follow me for after, whilst Tri Attack does come out from the Porygon 2, deals good damage onto that Urshifu that is known not to have good special defense, whilst the knockoff does come out from the Rillaboom, does knock off that Eviolite off of the Porygon 2, allowing the Urshifu to deal huge amounts of damage thanks to that Wicked Blow. And of course, the Eviolite no longer boosting the defenses of that Porygon 2 as much as it would have originally liked.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of a missed opportunity from the Urshifu. Could have got a close combat into that Porygon 2 that would have lost its Eviolite. So it's leaving the Porygon 2 on the field here. Now we've got fake out pressure for Mattie because the grassy terrain has been set up. But yeah, because he set up that grassy terrain, that means that the Rillaboom on both sides of the field have access to priority grassy glide. That means that the Rillaboom on Marcus' side will be able to threaten down that Porygon 2 with a grassy glide with priority. And with the EVO like knocked off, it's going to be taking that a lot worse than it would have done before. And the Porygon 2 is going to be scared of that and it's going to be switching out instead into this Marowak.
So Mattie, recognizing that potential, does bring that shiny Alolan Marowak in, whilst the Urshifu on Marcus's end does switch out for the Toxtricity this time round. So Grassy Glide does come out, like you said, Jamie, into that Porygon 2 slot, hoping to pick up the KO, but of course, it's not very effective against this Fire-type Marowak, whilst the Rillaboom on Mattie's end is going to do the exact same for the opposite slot in the form of the Toxtricity. So both players being able to have a bit of a stalemate situation whilst understanding that they need to be reducing the damage output of any Grassy Glides.
Yeah, and this is exactly the position that the Marowak wants to be in. It's in the Trick Room. It's facing on 2 Pokemon that it really wants to face down. Whether it has that Boomerang or not on the Toxtricity, it's probably still going to be in range of any move that the Marowak wants to go for. Because of that thick club doubling its attack, it just does so much damage. The Rillaboom would easily be in range of any kind of Max Flare that the Marowak would want to go for. And Toxtricity not being the bulkiest of Pokemon, probably going to be going down as well. So really, Mattie just gets to take his choice of KO here with the Marowak. Whether he wants to switch out the Rillaboom to preserve Fake Out pressure in the back, if he wants to switch in that Indeedee to overwrite the Psychic Terrain so there'll be no priority Grassy Glide from Markus's Rillaboom, and he is going to be switching out that Rillaboom, resetting the Fake Out pressure.
He is going to be resetting that Fake Out pressure by bringing the Porygon 2 now in. Does go ahead and get the download boost for a +1 special attack boost on its end, whilst we're actually going to be seeing the Dynamax come out from Mattie's side from what it looks like in the form of that Marowak. That Marowak, like you said, if it is carrying that thick club item, which, come on, let's be real, it should be to be boosting, doubling its attack. It's going to be threatening huge amounts of damage, potential pretty much KO on either Pokemon. Whilst the Toxtricity is actually going to go for the Protect, so if this Marowak goes for a Max Quake, I'll be really interested in see if it can actually pick up a KO, but it doesn't. It goes for the Max Flare into the Rillaboom, does pick up a KO, rendering Markus's Toxtricity Protect a bit useless at the current point, so Mattie being able to take full advantage of that does set the sun up, allowing this Marowak to deal even more damage if it wants to going into the next turn.
Yeah, the Toxtricity not really threatening the Marowak at all. If it does carry that Lightning Rod ability, the Overdrive would be useless, and it does resist the Sludge Bomb as well, so a very free target into the Rillaboom as the Toxtricity wasn't threatening that Marowak. The Urshifu is going to be coming back in here. If it does have access to Sucker Punch, it could threaten down the Marowak with that, but then there's still that Indeedee that is still waiting in the back and can just overwrite the Grassy Terrain with that Psychic Terrain, stop any potential Sucker Punches coming out from the Urshifu, and would just allow the Marowak to get another KO that it wants to. Whether that's going to be into that Toxtricity, because it did just Protect, and would be a pretty free attack into that slot, or if he just wants to target the Urshifu as well. It is very low. Almost certainly going to be in range of a Max Flare. It would be very close if it is in range of one through a Protect, but yeah, this is an absolutely commanding position for Mattie at the moment.
Like you said, Mattie was just able to get that Trick Room mode going, and not only that, just establish the threat of having terrain of his choice if he wants to just switch it in at any given moment. Whilst talking about switch in, switch out, the Dracovish is going to come in now for that Toxtricity, whilst the Urshifu does go for a Protect. So it'll be really interesting to see which target is... Oh, wow! So Mattie's actually going to go straight for the Dracovish, going to try to ensure a definite KO from his end, because the only way maybe if Toxtricity was able to survive through the Protect was if it were to go for a double Protect. Whilst the Porygon 2 does come out and go ahead and use Tri Attack, relatively safe play from Mattie, but it's only because of the fact that he's able to have such a commanding position in Trick Room.
Yeah, and the Trick Room's going to be ending here, so Marowak will be moving last again on the field. Markus still does have access to his Dynamax. He has held off on that the entire game, but he has taken a lot of damage. He's still got the Urshifu that's just under half health, but that would be able to threaten down the Marowak, whether he wants to just go for a Wicked Blow with that guaranteed critical hit, or if he wants to go for the Dynamax or the Gigantamax to be able to fire off either the One Blow or the Darkness into the Marowak. Be very close if that's enough to pick up the knockout on the Marowak as well. And because the Eviolite has been knocked off on the Porygon, maybe in range of a move from the Toxtricity as well. Maybe that's the Pokemon that wants to go for that Dynamax as well, but then you still have to be fearing that Lightning Rod coming out from the Marowak. And yeah, maybe an Ooze will be enough on the Porygon. If it is, and a Wicked Blow was able to knock out the Marowak, then it could potentially be pulled back for Markus, but it is a very precarious position. Whether he wants to go for the Dynamax on the Toxtricity to try and boost up the special attack on the with the Ooze, because you can't really safely go for that stun shock, but maybe the Porygon 2 will be able to survive that, so maybe he needs to go for the Dynamax on the Urshifu, hope that he is able to take out the Marowak in one shot, get rid of that Lightning Rod, put the Overdrive single target into the Porygon 2 as well. That may be able to pull back the match for Markus, so yeah. You would expect to see a Dynamax. It's going to be interesting to see which Pokemon he decides to Dynamax here.
I know, because this is the moment where the game is basically going to be established and concluded, because it's all about Markus being able to go outside, outlast the Trick Room and get his Dynamax going, which we are going to be seeing from his end. Now, the real question is, which Pokemon is it? It is that Urshifu. So the Urshifu will be hoping to be able to tank a hit from this Marowak. But let's remember, the Max Phantasm did come out the previous turn, so this Urshifu does have a -1 defense stat stage. But the G-Max 1 blow does come out, hoping to pick up the KO. Unfortunately, it does not. Very cool animation, though. Whilst Overdrive does come out, does proc the Lightning Rod ability of the Marowak, but of course it's a double target move. It does land on the Porygon 2, but it's not enough to pick up the KO, whilst Max Flare does come out from that Marowak and will be basically ending this game, giving Mattie that advantage of game 1, picking up that KO onto that Urshifu, whilst Toxtricity is just left there, unfortunately, not in a good situation, whilst having to face Trick Room yet again.
Yeah, it seems like one blow wasn't enough on this Marowak, unfortunately. Able to survive quite comfortably. At least Markus has been able to confirm that this is Lightning Rod on the Marowak. Some players do opt for that Rock Head to be able to take no recoil from the Flare Blitz, but yeah, just being able to guarantee the Trick Room setup with that Sash on the Indeedee meant Taunt couldn't go into the Porygon 2. And this Marowak and Trick Room is just so effective against Markus' team. We saw that Max Phantasm was able to take out the Dracovish in one shot, and just showing how strong that Marowak is. And Markus really can't let Mattie get into Trick Room with that Marowak again. It doesn't seem like he has the best of ways of stopping that. Taunt would be a very good way of stopping the Porygon 2 for going for the Trick Room, but that means you'd be leading the Rillaboom into Indeedee once again. We saw the Indeedee got the Psychic Surge off second against the Rillaboom, whether that was a speed tie. Markus would know that, and if he wants to go for that again, then that is a potential risk he could take. But if he knows that his Rillaboom is going to be faster than the Indeedee, then he doesn't really have the best of ways to stop him Trick Room.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it all depends on how that Rillaboom is trained in its speed stat. And of course, like you said, Markus will be the only one that will know that. But it will be such a disappointing factor if you were Markus and you would think, well, I know that my Rillaboom is minimum speed, so it's all down to a 50-50 on whether this Indeedee does get its Psychic Terrain off or not, because that proves to be really, really crucial in this specific matchup, given the fact that Trick Room does go down and gets shut down, of course, thanks to that Fake Out if it does come out and the Drasseray being on the field. And maybe if a Taunt from another Pokemon to come up, because we did see that Rillaboom go for the Taunt in Game 1, Turn 1. So, like you said, Jamie, I'm not sure how Markus is going to be able to shut down this Trick Room mode. Maybe try to opt for a Lapras setup and maybe get the Aurora Veil going and have, I'm not sure, maybe a Dracovish again in the back. But it's just, this Trick Room mode is proving to be quite unstoppable at the minute in this matchup for Markus.
Yeah, Mattie just has a guaranteed Trick Room if he wants. So long as the Indeedee moves second with its ability against the Rillaboom on the first turn, the Indeedee will be able to redirect anything, and the Porygon 2 will set up Trick Room. So Lapras may be the adjustment that Markus wants to go for. If he can't stop Trick Room, he just has to accept it, and the Aurora Veil would be a way of bulking out his team to maybe be able to make it through those turns. We saw that the Max Phantasm was able to knock out something like the Dracovish, but if that Dracovish is behind the Aurora Veil, it would be able to take those max moves.
Yeah, I think that must be his way out in this situation, unless we do see the Rillaboom lead again, and maybe it is going to be slightly confirming to us that it is a 50-50. But no, we are seeing the Urshifu and Toxtricity come out this time round. Maybe the Toxtricity hoping to get an Overdrive going and deal huge amounts of damage paired up next to that Urshifu. But we are going to be seeing, like you said, Jamie, the same lead from Mattie because of the fact that it's just such a guaranteed Trick Room setup right now, isn't it? And the Porygon 2 does get that special attack boost thanks to that download ability.
Well, we say this is guaranteed. There is technically a way that Markus could go for. Toxtricity does have access to Stun Shock, and that can paralyze the opposing Pokemon. That is technically a way that Trick Room could not go up this turn 1. If he doesn't Dynamax the Toxtricity or Gigantamax to get the Stun Shock, then Trick Room will be going up this turn. So maybe that is what Markus is going to opt for. Because he knows that the Trick Room will go up in almost every other situation, maybe this is what he wants to go for. Try and go for those paralysis to try and stop that Porygon.
I mean, it makes sense, and we do actually see the Rillaboom come in for that Urshifu, threatening a fake out the following turn. We're not going to see a Dynamax or Gigantamax, should I say, from Markus' side. We're just going to see the Follow Me from the Indeedee and an Overdrive from that Toxtricity, dealing good amounts of damage onto both Pokemon, especially on Porygon 2, given the fact that it was able to land a critical hit whilst the Trick Room will be going up thanks to that Porygon 2, of course. So in this situation, what do you think, Jamie? Rillaboom does threaten that fake out, but that Marowak is just waiting to come in the back, isn't it?
Yeah, and it'll be very easily switched in on an Overdrive. But we have seen that Rillaboom does carry knockoff. It probably wants to be knocking off both the Dark-type weak Indeedee and the EVO-like Porygon, so Marowak really wouldn't be a free switch in for Mattie. It would be incredibly risky. He probably wants to be sacrificing his Indeedee, redirecting any of the moves so that he can get that switch in for the Marowak. But then at the same time, Markus doesn't need to take any KOs if he doesn't want to. And maybe that's the option he's going for here. Because the Overdrive wasn't doing too much damage to the Indeedee and the Porygon. It wouldn't pick up a knockout either. So if the Rillaboom on Markus' side wants to go for a fake out and just an Overdrive with Toxtricity, that is a way of stalling out the Trick Room. He can't let this Marowak come in for free.
And we are going to be seeing that Toxtricity actually switch out now for that Urshifu, once again landing on the field, whilst the Rillaboom on Mattie's end is going to be coming in favor of the Porygon 2, whilst they Protect actually comes out from the Indeedee. And we do see the Rillaboom on Markus' side knocking off an Assault Fest on Mattie's Rillaboom, not actually opting for Fake Out, but Mattie will be able to threaten a Fake Out if he wants to, but he's not in the situation he really wants to be, given the fact that the Marowak still isn't on the field.
Yeah, this is a good way of stalling out the Dynamax. We've already, the Trick Room from the Porygon, because we have already lost 2 turns of the Trick Room. There's only 3 left, so Marowak would have to take a turn switching in if it wants to be on the field and make use of that. So Markus is doing a very good job so far of stalling out the Trick Room. The Rillaboom and the Indeedee isn't threatening the Rillaboom on Markus' side too much, and the Urshifu is going to be one of the best ways through the Marowak for Markus' side, so maybe he wants to switch that out. The Indeedee won't be threatening the Rillaboom too much with an Expanding Force, but it would be able to threaten that Toxtricity, but it won't be spread damage. But instead, the Urshifu is just going to be protecting it.
Yeah, so trying to outlast that Trick Room, like you were talking about. Knockoff actually comes out from the Rillaboom into the Indeedee slot. Does knock off its Focus Sash, which at this point, of course, was useless. Whilst we actually see a Light Screen coming up from that Indeedee. Very interesting tech to be running. Woodhammer is, like you mentioned, unfortunately not going to be able to break through that Urshifu's Protect as well.
Yeah, that's another turn of Trick Room gone. There's only going to be 2 left, so this is a very, very good showing of how to stall out Trick Room from Markus. A lot of players just launch attacks immediately and take out the redirection Pokemon on the first turn, and then that gives the Trick Room sweepers all 4 turns of Trick Room to be able to launch off all those powerful attacks. But Markus hasn't taken a KO yet. We're 3 turns in now, and he hasn't KO'd that Indeedee, and it's really not threatening too much because we're in the grassy terrain. Its Expanding Forces won't be spread, and it won't be too strong either. The Light Screen is quite nice for the Toxtricity, but at the moment he's facing down 2 physical attackers, so this is a really good showing from Markus of how to stall out Trick Room.
Yeah, like you said, he's doing it very, very well. He's switching that Urshifu once again out for the Toxtricity this time around, keeping that pivoting going, whilst Protect does come out from the female Indeedee once again. Knockoff, unfortunately for Markus, is not able to pick up a KO there, whilst Woodhammer is not going to be, wow, I was going to say it's not going to be dealing as much damage, but let's not forget, Rillaboom is an absolute beast in grass terrain, dealing huge amounts of damage, over half of damage worth of the HP on that Toxtricity, which is resisting.
Yeah, and this is the final turn of Trick Room, so Markus has very successfully stalled it out. He just needs to KO this Indeedee on this final turn of Trick Room, which he can very easily do with a Grassy Glide in the grassy terrain. And then he just needs to find a way to get his Urshifu in before that Porygon 2 can switch in. We're actually going to be seeing a Dynamax on this final turn of Trick Room.
Wow, so the Dynamax trigger has been pulled from Mattie's end, revealing that Gigantamax Rillaboom, just trying to opt maybe for damage. I'm not sure what kind of move is going to be going for right now. Maybe a Max Quake into the Toxtricity, boosted by a Stomping Tantrum, but we are going to be seeing Protect come out from that Toxtricity on Markus's side, making sure he can outlast that Trick Room. Follow Me comes out from the female Indeedee, so it'll be interesting to see what this Rillaboom on Markus' end is going to go for. Is it going to go for the Grassy Glide to pick up the KO onto the Indeedee? But this is the moment that I'm very curious to see. Max Flutterby, ladies and gents, going into that Rillaboom slot, hoping to pick up the KO, but not being anywhere near, dealing about half the HP's worth of that Rillaboom, and dropping special attacks, to be honest, maybe on the Toxtricity could matter. I mean, the Toxtricity is not going to be dealing as much damage as it would have liked, but Markus does still have Dynamax.
Yeah, and the Trick Room's going to be over now, but that means the Porygon 2 can come back in and potentially set up another Trick Room. Really wanted to have your Urshifu on the field when the Trick Room had run out and the Indeedee had been KO'd, because then you'd be able to take a free KO on this Porygon 2. Has taken quite a lot of damage, but the Toxtricity's really not threatening too much because it has taken that special attack drop from the Flutterby, and there is also the light screen that was set on the field by the Indeedee, so the Toxtricity's really not going to be doing the damage here, and Rillaboom's probably not going to be doing too much to the Porygon 2. Maybe Markus wants to consider a Dynamax on his Rillaboom as well, get access to that Drum Solo, which is going to be doing a huge amount of damage. That's probably going to be the only way he's stopping Trick Room this turn, but nope, Taunt is going to come out instead from the Toxtricity as well.
Wow, talking about stopping Trick Room, Markus was able to do it really well there, whilst Max Flutterby does come out from Mattie's Rillaboom and does reveal that it is faster, at least for now, against that opposing Rillaboom. Does pick up the KO, whilst yet again dropping that special attack of the Toxtricity, which is now at -2, whilst unfortunately for that little Porygon 2, it's not going to be able to set up Trick Room once again.
Yeah, so having Taunt on multiple mons is very, very good for Markus here, because the Rillaboom was going to outspeed and stop the Taunt from the Rillaboom on Markus' side, and yeah, having Taunt on Toxtricity as well means that Trick Room didn't go up. Now the Urshifu is in exactly the position it wants to be. The Trick Room is not up, the Porygon is very threatened down by something like a close combat from the Urshifu, but then at the same time it can just go for the Gigantamax, go for a Knuckle instead, and boost up its attack while not reducing its special defenses. You always have to be wary of that Marowak switch in. You never want to go for a Max Knuckle or a close combat into a Ghost type, but yeah, that was a clutch Taunt coming out from the Toxtricity. I mean, really wanting to shut down the status moves on the opponent's side of the field, and very, very strong Taunt coming out from the Toxtricity.
Definitely very strong. It just goes to show that being able to have that flexibility on your team to try to shut down your opponent's strategies is so viable and makes so much sense. Urshifu does go for the wicked blow from Markus' side. Doesn't pick up a KO onto that Porygon 2, so maybe not opting for close combat. Doesn't want any special defense or defensive drops. Overdrive does come out from the Toxtricity, dealing pitiful amounts of damage worth on that Porygon 2, not being able to pick up a KO. G-Max Drum Solo as well, not being able to pick up the KO on Urshifu, but the double up. Will it be able to pick up the KO? I'm not sure. Oh, it just does. So good double up from Mattie's side as well, whilst we do see his light screen is now worn off.
Yeah, opting not to Dynamax his Urshifu. We definitely see why with this Lapras waiting in the back, and lost the Gigantamax on the Rillaboom now, so it has lost access to that Drum Solo. And the Grassy Terrain is also off the field, so the Grassy Glides won't be doing as much damage. And you did see the Rillaboom on Mattie's side outspeed the Rillaboom on Markus' side, so this might be a bit of a speedier Rillaboom, potentially outspeeding that Lapras, but Lapras is paired with that Talonflame, so usually when you make that pairing, you run a lot of speed on your Lapras. So the interactions of speed between the Lapras and the Rillaboom is going to be very important here. Whether the Rillaboom would be able to get off one of those Grassy Glides or Wood Hammers into the Lapras before it attacks. But yeah, the Urshifu going down was able to do a lot of damage to that Porygon, but Lapras is going to be putting all the hopes, all the eggs in one basket for the Lapras here, for Markus. Sure. And still able to deal with that Marowak. The Urshifu was a good way through the Marowak, but so is a Max Geyser from a Lapras.
Yeah, and the Marowak is actually going to be switching in now for that Porygon 2, whilst we will be seeing Markus go for that Gigantamax. Now, logically, of course, it will be this Lapras. It is the mascot as well of Germany. So Markus representing very, very well right here. And we'll be hoping to probably go for G-Max Resonance, maybe into the Rillaboom slot. I think we have seen previously that this Rillaboom on Mattie's side is Assault Vest. So it might not be going down. Oh, I take that back. It will be going down if it is a double up, of course. But no, not this turn, because the Rillaboom is going to be able to move immediately after the Toxtricity, but before the Lapras, to get a cheeky little pivoting U-turn off, being able to switch in that Porygon 2 to take all of the hits, whilst the Rillaboom will be able to, when it comes back in, get that all-important grass terrain up and going, giving it priority if it so needs to. While G-Max Resonance is actually going to be going into that previously Porygon 2 slot, dealing huge amount of damage onto that Marowak. Even if it does resist it, does get the Aurora Veil going and reveal the Life Orb on that Lapras, which makes a lot of sense because, Jamie, that was huge damage for a resisted hit.
Yeah, almost doing half damage to that Marowak is a very significant chunk, and now the Aurora Veil is set up on the Lapras. The Toxtricity really still isn't threatening too much damage. Almost certainly won't be able to KO that Porygon, thanks to his drop in special attack earlier from the Flutterby. The light screen has worn off, so the Lapras and the Toxtricity are going to be doing a lot more damage. Porygon 2 will definitely be in range of any move that the Lapras wants to go for. Marowak probably won't be able to deal with this Lapras too effectively, because he's got the Aurora Veil set up. But if the Porygon 2 gets attacked this turn, the Trick Room gets stopped, but then Mattie gets us free switching back into his Rillaboom.
Yeah, I think Mattie's really positioned himself well. After we thought that Markus was doing so, which he was with the taunts, and we are going to be seeing the Protect come out from that Toxtricity, as well as a Detect from the Marowak, protecting himself from any huge amounts of damage, whilst the G-Max Resonance does come off first before the Porygon 2, and is enough, of course, to pick up the KO, as well as the fact that that Porygon 2 has lost its Eviolite, so it naturally is weaker. But maybe this was just a situation where Mattie wanted to bring the Rillaboom in unscathed and being able to threaten a fake out or even huge amounts of damage onto this Lapras. But we did see that Toxtricity move before the Rillaboom in the previous turns.
Yeah, and it did a lot of damage to that Rillaboom with the Sludge Bomb. Almost certainly going to be in range here, so it looks like it's probably going to be Markus's game here. If the Rillaboom wants to fake out the Toxtricity, then the Lapras is just going to fire off a Max Geyser into the Marowak, and then you can just attack with either your Toxtricity or the Lapras or the Rillaboom. And if the Rillaboom wants to try and get a Wood Hammer into the Lapras, the Toxtricity is probably going to be moving first and KOing it before it can get that attack off. So it's a very, very strong position for Markus here.
Yeah, and wow, Mattie does opt for the double detect and does get it. Whilst the fake out does go into that Toxtricity slot from that Rillaboom, does flinch it for this turn. Max Geyser will be coming out from the Lapras. Is it enough to pick up the KO? Life Orb boosted. Marowak does survive on 10 HP, ladies and gents. Very, very crucial double detect right there while setting that rain up as well. Life Orb recoil does go off a bit on the Lapras, and this is looking a bit more better for Mattie, but at the same time, advantage is definitely in Markus's ball area, because in the fact that the Dynamax will be going off, right, Jamie? So maybe Mattie is hoping for a Hydro Pump miss.
Yeah, maybe a Blizzard as well. It's not going to be the most accurate move if it's opted for that over Freeze Dry. Maybe he wants to put the Toxtricity into Grassy Glide range as well, which probably won't be at this stage. It'll be quite close because Toxtricity isn't the frailest of Pokemon, but maybe the Lapras will be in Grassy Glide range. And almost certainly going to be in critical hit Grassy Glide range, so that could be crucial here, but the Lapras is able to survive that Grassy Glide.
Ooh, it does survive, and the Sludge Bomb does come off straight after, picks up the KO onto the Rillaboom. So it's all down to if this Lapras can land a Hydro Pump, but it doesn't even opt for that. It just goes for the Freeze Dry, just wanting to guarantee damage. And in the end of the day, not have a chance to miss, which Markus was able to do very, very well. So props to Markus. He was able to play expertly well to bring this one back and force a Game 3.
I think that was just an absolutely masterful showing of how Hyper Offense actually can beat Trick Room, even if you can't stop the Trick Room going up. Because I hear a lot of people say these kind of teams, it just immediately loses to Trick Room. It did appear that way in Game 1, but it's clearly shown in Game 2 that that is not always the case. a very crucial part of that is not KOing the redirection Pokemon as the Trick Room goes up. Because the redirection Pokemon usually is quite passive. It just wants to sacrifice itself so that the Trick Room Pokemon can get that Trick Room set up and allow the sweeper in the back to come in and make use of as many turns of Trick Room as possible. But if you never KO that redirection Pokemon, you never get that free switch into your Trick Room sweepers. And if you hard switch your Trick Room sweepers in, they could be taking a lot of damage. And yeah, just an absolutely fantastic showing of how to stall out Trick Room when you can't stop it from Markus here.
What do you think think's going through Mattie's head right now? So is he thinking about maybe leading the same and just hoping just to try to get Trick Room going? Because like you said, he was just so passive with that Indeedee. It was doing nothing other than maybe trying to redirect. It did get the light screen off, to be fair, so it did have a bit more support, but it was outlasting its own Trick Room turns, which it really never wants to do.
Yeah, he probably wants to go for something similar. Like he does still have the guaranteed Trick Room, but he needs to be able to get his Indeedee off the field a lot quicker than he did before. Whether that is going for that hard switch, which is always risky, but yeah, I don't see too many reasons for Mattie to change. He will have a guaranteed Trick Room against a hyper-offensive team, but now he knows how Markus wants to stall out that Trick Room. Maybe he knows where the targeting is likely to go in to be able to get a free switch into that Marowak. Because a Marowak in Trick Room is really going to be sweeping very well against Markus's team. That probably should still be Mattie's main strategy, but he really needs to get that Marowak in quicker and make use of all those turns of Trick Room.
Yeah, it's just because Markus was able to so masterfully outlast all of those Trick Room turns in such a good, well-fashioned way. And he will be actually opting for that same lead in Game 3 as well, that Toxtricity and Urshifu. And we're going to be seeing the same leads once again for a third game in a row from Mattie's, and recognizing, of course, that he needs to get the Trick Room going, but he needs to try to basically use up the Trick Room turns well, and maybe get rid of that Indeedee in the switch out, to be honest.
Yeah, so very similar position here. We know that Markus wants to switch in his Rillaboom, override that Psychic Terrain, have Fake Out Pressure in the future, and stop the Expanding Force from being spread. Probably allowing the Toxtricity to survive that Expanding Force. It almost certainly won't be surviving in the Psychic Terrain. So, going to be some interesting mind games here. We know that the Toxtricity also carries Taunt as well, so the Indeedee would need to redirect if it wanted to stop Trick Room, and we're going to see a third Pokemon with Taunt here.
Wow, what a reveal, having Taunt on it and actually landing it in the Porygon 2, whilst the Overdrive's going to be able to deal huge amounts of damage, especially onto that Indeedee. Expanded Force actually comes out. Of course, the Urshifu is immune to it, ladies and gents, but that Toxtricity is not, and will be going down. But actually, Mattie didn't even opt for the Trick Room this time round, and went for the straight Tri Attack, which doesn't actually pick up a status ailment, which it does, of course, have the chance to.
Oh, what a turn. I don't think I've ever seen 3 Pokemon on the same team carry Taunt. And yeah, that allowed the Overdrive to go off from the Toxtricity. Toxtricity did have the chance to go for the Taunt itself, and Urshifu would have been able to do a huge amount of damage to the Indeedee with the Wicked Blow, bringing it down to its Focus Sash, or getting that close combat into the Porygon 2. But also a great read from Mattie here, going on the offensive with the Porygon 2, expecting that Taunt. And now the Lapras has come in, and is going to be threatening the knockout on the Indeedee from this range. The Focus Sash has been broken, and the Urshifu would also be able to take out the Indeedee, allowing the Lapras to attack the Porygon 2, which has been taunted now, so yeah, there is no threat of Trick Room coming out from Markus. He has to safely take out that Indeedee, go for a max move with the Lapras, probably set up the Resonance with the Aurora Veil for the Lapras, and yeah, he won't be in Trick Room, and this is looking like a very good position for Markus. He can even preserve that Urshifu if he wants for the Marowak in the future, but instead he's going to leave it in here, probably knock out that Indeedee with the Wicked Blow, and set up the Aurora Veil with the Resonance from this Lapras.
I mean, it just makes a lot of sense right now because Markus has so much momentum going into this turn 2. It's actually insane. We are going to be seeing the Lapras go ahead and gain that Gigantamax form of its own, hoping to try to get G-Max Resonances off, just deal good damage onto a taunted Porygon, which doesn't actually switch out. But we do see Urshifu go for a Protect this time round. G-Max Resonance does come out. There is no Follow Me from the Indeedee. Will be dealing good chip damage onto that Porygon 2, whilst of course setting up the Aurora Veil. And we are going to more than likely be seeing the female Indeedee moving next, hoping to be able to get some sort of damage or maybe light screen off, which we do actually see revealed. So the good situation, a bit better, should I say, for Mattie's and trying to get that, add that longevity to his team, whilst the Tri-Attack does once again come out from the Porygon 2, which just actually opts to stay in this turn.
Maybe a little bit of a missed opportunity from Markus here. He did have the opportunity to take out the Porygon 2, as the Indeedee did not go for the redirection with the Follow Me. And yeah, now he's been able to get that light screen up, and it was quite good stalling out the Tri-Attack from the Porygon 2, allowing the Urshifu to take another knockout here. But with that light screen, the Porygon 2 is probably going to be surviving whatever the Lapras throws at it. It did opt for the Resonance to set up the Aurora Veil instead of the Max Geyser to set up the Rain. Maybe the Rain boost would have been enough to break through the light screen and still KO the Porygon 2, but the Porygon 2 is probably going to be out of range now.
Yeah, we're actually going to be seeing the Indeedee go for the Follow Me to redirect any move coming out from the Urshifu, but of course it was probably always going into that slot. Let's be honest. Wicked Blow is going to be more than enough to pick up the KO onto that Indeedee. Critical hit 100% of the time with that signature move, whilst the Lapras is going to be going for the Max Geyser. We'll be setting that Rain up in case there's a Marowak in the back. Unfortunately, it actually doesn't pick up the KO onto the Porygon 2, because naturally, if it is Freeze Dry boosted, which we have seen, the Max Geyser boosted off the Hydro Pump hits harder, whilst the Porygon 2 is going to go ahead, get a Tri-Attack off, whilst being enough, to pick up the KO onto that Urshifu, as Porygon 2 actually shakes off that taunt.
Yeah, so I think I would have preferred to see the Max Geyser instead of the Resonance the previous turn, so that Rain was set up. You saw how little HP the Porygon 2 was able to survive with. It would have been KO'd if the Max Geyser was in the Rain, and it would have brought Mattie down to his last two Pokemon. He does have now the Rillaboom facing down against the Lapras. Most likely going to be the Pokemon that wants to Dynamax here, having access to that Drum Solo, avoiding the fake out that could come out from the opposing Rillaboom on Marcus's side. But the Aurora Veil is up on the Lapras' side, so he didn't pick up the KO on the Porygon 2, but he would be able to survive whatever the Rillaboom throws at it, even that really powerful G-Max Drum Solo. So not the worst of positions, not KOing that Porygon 2. Probably not in range of a fake out, but almost certainly going to be in range of a Grassy Glide here as well. But there's going to be no Gigantamax this turn. It's going to be a fake out from Mattie's Rillaboom onto Marcus's.
Yeah, so Marcus's Rillaboom is not going to be able to move this turn round, whilst the G-Max Resonance does come off from the Lapras into the Rillaboom, which is an Assault Vest, as well as protected by a Light Screen, allowing it to survive, whilst the Porygon 2 is able to get such a free recover off from its end. It doesn't actually opt for a Trick Room, which it could have, but I think going for the recover was actually the better play, because that Rillaboom on Marcus's side could always pick it off in Trick Room.
And now it probably won't be able to. We did see it was carrying Taunt, so almost certainly not carrying that Wood Hammer. Lost the Gigantamax on the Lapras now. Could potentially be in range of a Grassy Glide, but the Aurora Veil is set up, so it probably would be able to survive that. And yeah, no Gigantamax coming from the Rillaboom on Mattie's side. Looks like he does want to be Dynamaxing that Marowak that he almost certainly has in the back. Porygon 2 did have the potential to set up Trick Room in that last turn. Probably still will be able to in this next turn, but a double up from the Rillaboom and Lapras, probably able to take the knockout on the Porygon 2, so essentially still be getting up that Trick Room for the Marowak in the back. We have seen that there was U-turn on the Rillaboom, so the Rillaboom could be U-turning into that Marowak as the Porygon 2 sets up Trick Room, but that would still be a very risky switch. There could be a potential water move going into that Rillaboom slot. Also the knockoff on the Rillaboom as well, but it's not even a U-turn, it's just going to be a straight switch into the Marowak.
Hard switch into the Marowak. Mattie is hoping to try to catch Markus off guard right there. Wow!
Oh, wow.
Wow, catching us off guard as well. What is this man doing? He's going ahead and Dynamaxing that Porygon 2, because why not? Markus is not going to expect it. The casters aren't going to expect it. I might as well do it. And maybe opting to go for Max Strikes right now, which will be reducing the speed of both opposing Pokemon. Freeze Dry coming out from the Lapras into that Marowak slot, which is going to be able to resist it just fine, even if the Lapras is boosted by a Life Orb. Whilst expecting the taunt from the Rillaboom, we're going to be seeing the Max Strike retaliating into the Rillaboom slot, dealing half its HP's worth of damage whilst dropping both the Rillaboom and the Lapras's speed stat stages by 1. Jamie, what a turn!
Yeah, that was very unexpected, and that's another way of controlling the speed. You can get around that taunt because you can't click the Trick Room if you're taunted. You can click Max Strike instead, and now it's going to be interesting to see how all the Pokemon on the field are trained. You'd probably expect the Porygon 2 to be moving before at least the Lapras. Be interesting to see whether the Rillaboom moves first or not. The Rillaboom on Mattie's side was faster, so this could be a bit of a slower Rillaboom on Markus's side. So the speed interactions here are going to be crucial. If the Porygon 2 is able to move first, it will allow another speed drop onto the Lapras and the Rillaboom, probably letting the Marowak outspeed both of those Pokemon. And so we're going to see the Marowak go for the Detect here, not confident that 2 Max Strikes would be enough.
Very safe play, but makes a lot of sense. Whilst we are going to be seeing the Rillaboom go for that Drastic Glide, hoping to get some good damage off. We are going to be seeing the Porygon 2 actually outspeeding that Lapras now. Oh, I think it just barely missed the KO onto that Rillaboom thanks to that grass terrain HP recovery during the turns. But we're actually going to be seeing a Berry Rock from the Rillaboom on Markus's end. So not an item you usually see, an Adwa Berry. Freeze Dry does come out from the Lapras, and look at this Porygon 2 bulking out whatever is being thrown at it, whilst having such an intimidating position against Markus's Pokemon.
Yeah, and now he'll be able to go for a third Max Strike, almost certainly outspeeding the Rillaboom as well at this stage. And you would surely expect a Marowak to outspeed a Lapras and a Rillaboom at -3 stages of speed, so should be comfortable going on the offense here. Yeah, such a great Dynamax from the Porygon 2 here. Max Strikes coming in absolutely clutch. The Rillaboom able to eat away on its Agua Berry, probably not able to survive, and I think Markus knows it.
Markus knows it. That was an absolutely phenomenal play from Mattie Morgan, your winner of the 4th and last feature match of today. Oh my lord, Jamie, that was such a high-level set. Like, from both players, it's insane. That Porygon 2 just showing that it's not only there for show, it is there for Dynamax, and it is there for winning sets.
Yeah, that was easily the correct choice of Dynamax coming out from Mattie here. Really catching Markus off guard with the taunts, fully expecting the Porygon 2 to go for the Trick Room. Yeah, just absolutely fantastic Dynamax. And got to see such very different games. We got to see how effective that if Trick Room goes up and you have your Trick Room Sweeper in game 1, how easily it can defeat a hyper-offensive team. Got to see in game 2 just the expertly maneuvered game of Markus, being able to avoid getting that Marowak, that free switch into Trick Room, and being able to stall it out very effectively. And then in game 3, Mattie showing that Porygon 2 doesn't even need to click Trick Room.
That was absolutely insane. I think Mattie was able to understand the situation. I mean, from Markus's side, who usually runs 3 Pokemon with Taunt? I mean, that is such an interesting strategy, and it makes a lot of sense because at first, like you said, Jamie, Markus looks like he has a very hyper-offensive team, right? You don't ever expect 3 Pokemon on a hyper-offensive team to be carrying that Taunt. So it's kind of like pick the parcel. You're not sure which to go for. You're not sure which will actually be able to reveal and shut down your strategy, because you see a Toxtricity and Urshifu lead and you're thinking, game 2, I saw what it did. Game 3, I'm expecting something similar. But then no, the Urshifu actually reveals it. But the thing is, Mattie didn't even try to go for Trick Room. He was like, listen, I'm going to be accepting the Taunt. I'm just trying to go ahead, pick up a KO on your Toxtricity and deal some damage on your Urshifu. And it actually was able to turn out really well for him, because in that game, he didn't need Trick Room, did he?
No, he just went on the offensive. Both times he got taunted. He went for the Tri-Attack initially in the first turn, and then went for those Max Strikes. And on these hyper-offensive teams, if Taunt is your only way to stop Trick Room and the team doesn't even need to click that Trick Room button, then that's going to be very detrimental for the hyper-offensive team. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a Taunt on that